Well, hello there, Tuberubers and tuberettes alike. It's a short talk in the trailer park with an old guy. It's probably 5:30, quarter to 6, something like that. Just got home. I stopped at Jack in the Box. I call it Juan in the Casket. See, Juan, Jack, John, Box. Never mind. Juan in the Casket. They got pretty decent egg rolls over there. I got 3 egg rolls, and they're pretty nice egg rolls. You know, if you like egg rolls. So anyway, you got that for dinner, and then they're selling. I noticed these chips here at the store the other day. They had a price on them here somewhere. Yeah, look at this. Down here in the corner, it was $6.29. $6.29, and I went, yeah, you can keep those. Well, they were having trouble marketing them, selling them, so they marked them all down to like $2.85 and stuff like that. And so I bought a bag of chips. I bought a bag of chips 3 days ago. Because all of a sudden, you know, they're knocking $2 and $3 off of the advertised price on the side of the bag. So it's like somebody's getting a little squished here, getting a little crunched for money. I got an appointment tomorrow morning, so I guess I'm taking yet more time off from work. Hooray! And going to go down and talk to another doc about my blood pressure issues and hypertension and whatnot. And I don't know really. I hope I'm not getting into some crazy episode where I'm going to be taking pills for the rest of my life. My goal is to get past the eye surgery, and then whatever they have to say about pills in the future, I'll think about it. What I'd really much rather find is a natural remedy kind of idea. You know, if there's something that you could just put in your diet, like for instance, I heard that beets, you know, BEET, beets are good. I don't know if that does any good or not. And I've heard there's a couple of other things that you could put in your diet in terms of blood pressure. But I don't know what causes blood pressure, high blood pressure, and I don't know how to make it go away either. So maybe I should kind of get educated on that. And if you know something about that, you know, you could drop in on my comments down there somewhere, and you could say, hey, go look at so-and-so as a source. And, you know, I might learn something, you know, couldn't hurt. And today we ran in, did a little bit of this and that. There was a job that Marty and I were at about 5 weeks ago. And this is a real weirdo. We were crawling underneath this house, and we were rerunning a laundry and kitchen sink because there was a big wet spot down there. Well, that's just one corner of the house. We found out today for the first time, because they're still complaining about the smell. And I said, well, what? Come on, that was 5 weeks ago. That thing's got to be dried up. No, it doesn't. What it turns out is that whoever reran this thing only reran part of the line, and it went back. We saw it go back, but between there and the corner, if you just looked on the other side of the dirt pile, there was this trench cut in the bottom of underneath the house. It's like 3.5, 4 feet wide, runs this deep, full of water, 35, 40 feet long. It's like, that's a lot of water in there. And so I started looking at this thing. I said, man, this whole sewer thing has got to come out. It's really only one bathroom. There's one kitchen sink and the clothes washer. And so I think what we're going to have to do is crawl back in there. This will be like late next week or some other time, because our schedule is already covered up. And with me taking all this time off for eyeball stuff, I knew it was going to be like this in terms of schedules. So, you know, we'll just do what we can do. I ain't Superman. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. And, you know, when you're dealing with an old guy, be prepared, because he's going to want to talk about, or her, you're going to want to talk about their health, you know, or their knees or their kidneys or something like that. I ain't going there. I didn't even take a look at the algorithm hardly today, this morning, when I got up and went out for getting ready to go to work. I just thought, you know, I kind of slept in a little bit and said, you know what, we're just going to go see what happens today. Today's unpaid sponsor, Kilt Lifter. Still a pretty good beer. Bunch of cheapskates. So in terms of where I was at with yesterday's idea on trying to get used to the idea that here I am, 65 years old, and you know, parts are beginning to fall off. We're beginning to have issues with health and whatnot, and that's expected. That's normal enough. But you know, I honestly believe that up until very recently, maybe this morning, I have never honestly considered the idea that I, Mike Labor, am immortal, that I will die, I will go into the ground just like my daddy did, and his daddy did, and his daddy did, and they all done that until all the way back to Adam. And let's not forget about Eve and all of our mothers. So in other words, everyone that's ever lived before us is where? In the ground. Mike, do you think you're going to go in the ground? Nah, I don't think so. The odds are against it. And so I think I've been in denial in one way or another most of my life that basically at some point or another I will physically die. Now I'm not on some kind of death wish thing, and I'm not trying to go out and find some shortcut exit out of here. But what I'm saying is that this has been a reminder for me, and so I think that it's helpful in terms of prayer. When we pray, we call upon the living God. I am that am. That's His name. I am who is. I be. I is. And so we call to the great God, and His Son's name is I am who is saving you to the uttermost. Now I made that last part up, but it means I am that am salvation. This is Jesus' name, Yahshua. And so I just got to thinking about some of this stuff today, is that what's He saving us from? Well, yes, He's saving us from sin. He's saving us from the compound destruction due to us from on high for judgment. He's saving us from despair. He's saving us from death itself. He is the death of death. So there's an element, I think, where I'm just thinking the other day that all this hubbub and locomotion and trying to make the schedule rework around these doctor's visits and all that. Well, the doctor's visits jump to the top of the list, and work actually falls out as a priority, which is really weird for me, because work has always been the priority in my mind. Anything else, just schedule it whenever you can. I don't care. Just don't be late for work, and don't miss work. Well, everything's changing in that way, and I thought, well, it reminds me a little bit of death. And so, when you think of death, I remember when my mom died, when I was, let's see, if she died when she was 59, before she turned 59, this would have been 1980, yeah, early 1980. And I came back home. I was stationed in Georgia in the military. I came back home for the funeral services and stuff. It was a very weird thing seeing your own mother in a casket, and because frankly it didn't really look that much like her. But the thing is that I stood right next to that box, and I reached out and I touched her hand, and I said to myself, "You're not here anymore, are you? You made some kind of leap. You moved out of this world. You jumped from one world to the next." Mom, that was amazing. But in other words, the idea being that when the Lord captures your heart, when the Lord captures your imagination and your soul down here where you are day to day, work in, work out, and you should pray, and you should read the Bible, and you should do good works, and you should be generous, and blah, blah, blah. All the stuff you're supposed to do. But really what comes out of it is that he's essentially saying that your biggest problem, which is death, I have, and in fact, I am the solution. This is Jesus Christ, not Mike Labor. Mike Labor ain't got solutions for nothing. I can't even figure out how to get my shoes laced half the time. But the point is that I just wanted to kind of, mumble some of this about this with you today. Is that, at 65, I got to thinking just the other day, and yesterday certainly didn't hurt. Oh, and by the way, kudos to me. Bravo, bravo. I think I'll pat myself in the back. I hope I don't throw my arm out of socket. I did not smoke yesterday after that. Just that. Coming down from that was such a bummer. That idea of, now we got to do what? We got to get doctor's offices and doctor's offices and doctor's offices, and then get back and schedule and hope that when we come back next time that my blood pressure will work so you can do your job. Oh, come on. How many days off is that? See what I'm doing? I'm counting how many days I'm going to have to miss at work, right? And so basically I think I'm a workaholic, some kind of weird addict or something. So I was thinking about that kind of stuff, and I thought, well, realistically, here's the deal. If you're an air breather, if you're watching this video right now, what are the odds that you're going into the ground? Well, I would say 100%, except there is an out clause that, as far as I know, the apostle's talking about, that there is a small group of people, and I don't know how small is. There's a group of people standing on the earth that when Jesus Christ returns in power with his holy angels unveiled, and he is revealed in his, what was the right word, uncreated fury, the God man who has come as a warrior king and a judge to do right. When he shows up, basically all bets are off down here. But in other words, there will be some human beings standing alive on this planet, I believe, who will be there to greet him and see, if only to grieve his coming, but they will see him coming. And I believe there will be some Christian souls there. Now, if you're there, if you're one of those guys and women, you will be transformed immediately into the glorified body. You will not have to pass through death and then be resurrected on the other side. But this transformation is at least as dramatic as that transformation from broken sinner to glorified saint. He does it all in one step for those folks. Well, I for years thought that I might want to be one of them, but frankly, I don't think I have it in me anymore. I ain't got the mojo. My get up and go got up and went. I'm getting tired and old and cranky, and I just thought, well, I don't know how many more years it is before the Lord comes back anyhow, but I'm hoping it's less than 10 or 20. But even if it's only 10, that puts me at 75 or closer to 76 by then. By the way, these egg rolls, if you want to try them, they always give you these little flavored things, sweet and sour sauce. I throw them away. I figure if you're using sweet and sour sauce, it's because you're trying to cover up something. Like when you go to a restaurant, a big steakhouse or something, and they want to know how much A1 or, Worcestershire sour sauce you want. It's like, no, what? If you got to put that stuff on the meat, you're hiding something. The flavor of the meat should be what's showcased. And if you have to cover it up with sauce, something's wrong. And that's what I think about this stuff. But enough about me. I just wanted to just kind of pass some ideas by. My kind of a little bouncy in the head. I was just so glad today that I didn't buckle down or knuckle down and knuckle under and however you knuckle it. And start smoking again, because that's already now 10 or 11 days or whatever it is. Friday will be 2 weeks. Friday morning at 6 a.m. will be 2 weeks. So I feel so good about having done that. And I thought, oh, I was just so bummed out. And then I got to thinking, why was I so bummed out? And that gets us back to our topic right now, is that ultimately I think I've been denying the fact for most of my life that, face it, I'm going to go in the ground. At some point, I'm going to be pushing up daisies with my daddy. See if we can have a little daisy race. But the point is that there's good news in that. Is that even death, the thing that we could not have conquered, we could not have even imagined conquering, the great King has entered into this world in person, in the body and in the person of Jesus Christ, and he has stepped in and he has kicked death in the butt. He kicked it square in the huevos rancheros, and and death has no hold on him anymore. He has the keys of death and hell. And the thing is that he's good. He's so uncommonly kind and warm and entertaining. He's fun to talk to. He's fun to be around. He's the love of our hearts. He's the desire of our hearts. And so that's kind of what I wanted to be for my Christian testimony. It wasn't necessarily a whole bunch of doctrinal analysis about, say, infralapsarian versus supralapsarian, et cetera, and having to do with the idea of the decrees of God and human responsibility versus the the almighty power, et cetera. And we can talk about those sort of things, but the thing is that I don't think that's really what changes people's opinions about. What I think changes people's opinions is I'm not the same man I used to be. You wouldn't know because you never knew the older man, the older me, or the previous version. But he's changing us from the inside. He's giving us hope. He's balancing us. He's giving us the ability to control ourselves and to breathe and to go ahead and confess our fears and to confess our folly and to confess our inadequacy and to confess our need of not only of him but of other people too in our lives. There's other people around you that you really do need, and there's another area right there where I just don't pay attention to that. I just don't pay attention. If you ask me what I need from other people, I always tell you the same thing. I don't need nothing. What I need is I'll go buy, or I'll produce, or I'll make it myself. I don't wait for people. I don't need people. That's just wrong. In other words, besides being plain false, it's a huge lie. But in other words, the thing is that he frees us to acknowledge our weakness And in our weakness, when I am weak, he is strong. And so this is the apostles' message to us, I think, at least in part, is that if you want to feel stoked up and feeling like you're on the right page and go on the right angle, then face it, you're going to die soon. And that's the way it works. In other words, the path of the cross, it was bloody, it was horrible. The Lord Jesus was beaten so badly, he was unrecognizable even by his closest friends. It was a damned shame. It was damned shameful. And the thing is this is the way that we humans treated our master when he showed up. And he says to the ladies weeping as he's going up to the hill, he says, don't you be weeping for me. If this is how they treat a green tree, what will they do when the tree is dry? That's where you and I come from, friend. And so we're going to be looking at a lot of cruelty, a lot of ugliness, a lot of plain flat out murder, and all the just grotesqueries of human fallenness. The whole thing with Elon Musk and DJT the other day, with that little, they had this little interview on their own network thing on X, and they had 100 million views or more. I don't know how many views. A bunch. One site said there was over 1 billion, that's with a B, views. Well, these weirdos in the EU are coming out talking to Musk now, saying, "Oh, you have to censor yourself. You can't publish that kind of stuff because you're changing the effect of elections or something." It's like, wait a minute, who's meddling in elections now? The EU is telling me what I may or may not say to a candidate in an election. You guys aren't even Americans. Go away. And I think Musk has given him pretty much that, move it on out of here finger. But the world that's around us right now, it's becoming more hostile toward Christianity. It's becoming more hostile toward the basic truth, the idea that 1 and 1 always equals 2, and it doesn't matter what your opinion is. That's becoming more like an outlaw idea. The idea that north is north and south is south, and you can't change them. Well, they're going to want to change that because it's narrow-minded and bigoted. You don't say, and the idea that men are men and women are women. Well, we can't have that, right? So meanwhile, what they got is men who are pretending to be women, beating up women and killing them, and this guy wants to be treated like he's some kind of hero, athlete. He's a piece of, never mind. 4-letter words, 4-letter words, 4-letter words, 4-letter words, 4-letter words. A man beats on a woman and kills her, and then wants a prize for it. I think I know what I think of that. And so, in other words, the entire world is going just plain ass backwards, and it's just a tilt-a-whirl from hell. But we're going to have the victory in Christ because our path that we're on, it isn't all glory and, hooray and walk around and promenade as the victors and throw confetti in the air and lollygag on your golden couch. No, it's going to be bloody. It's going to be costly, and it's going to look very gruesome and very hopeless. A lot of people are going to be hurt, and a lot of people are going to die. And that's the way this goes, is that the Christian witness is being more and more hated and set aside, more and more rejected, as if we were the ones who cannot tolerate other people. We were the narrow-minded, bigoted ones who cannot tolerate other people. And it's like, so what you're saying is that you cannot tolerate us because we cannot tolerate you? But who said we don't tolerate you? We already do. We tolerate you every day of the week. So at any rate, never mind that. The point I kind of just wanted to kind of bounce around in my head is that what looks like life, what looks like victory, what looks like triumph, what looks like, hooray, we won. On the other hand, when it actually gets applied through the gospel, it can be pretty darn ugly. It can be painful, frustrating, slowpoke, repetitive, ridiculous, absurd, and take way too long a time. That's the way reality could work if the cross is at work in our lives. And so we've got to be open to the idea of having our lives and our schedules ruined, torn to pieces, so to speak. We've got to be open to the idea that maybe God has some other idea for my day than I had for my day. And his idea, when we go that route and I get involved and pay attention and seek his face in the middle of that, he will provide a new way, a new answer, and it's through this death and resurrection motif. We are joined to the Messiah at the cross. We are joined to the Messiah at the empty tomb. both by grace, both through faith, both by the power of the Spirit. So rock on, and if it looks dark, probably is. If you think it's getting darker, you're probably right. If you think you can't handle it, I wouldn't be surprised if you can't. But the idea is that he has the victory, he has the power, he has the presence, and he makes your heart full of joy. He renews you from the inside out. So our testimony isn't about how smart I am and how many right answers I got. Our testimony is that in the darkness I cried out, and he heard me, and he came into me, and he changed me. And he has not left, and he will not leave, because he's good, and he loves his children. That's our testimony. It's about Jesus. Maybe you could spread some of that, okay? I'm not asking you to be a theologian. I'm asking you to just say, this is what happened to me. And what he did to me was he took me from being basically suicidal to having now 40 years and more beyond that, and experiencing with him this new life a little bit more and more. I'm actually looking forward to heaven, because when I was first a Christian, people used to say, well, you know, hey, you got eternal life. And it's like, who would want to do this forever? Why? It was like, you've got to be nuts. You want to pay taxes? You want to go to the dentist? You want to have, you know, broken kneecaps when you fall off of ladders? You want to, you know, go ahead and cut your hand 10,000 times because you never did figure out how to use that grinder, you know, over in millenniums? You know, I mean, the idea of a never-ending life just sounded like a really bad idea. And but he meant not a life that's cursed, not a life that's frustrated, but a life that's renewed and freed and enlivened in him. And so both are at work in our lives, the old and the new. And so we're experiencing both and beginning to realize that in order to have the good and the blessed thing, we must sometimes embrace the dark and do the thing that we're called to do, even though it costs us, even though we lose in the deal. He gains because we went through it for his sake, under his teaching, under his guidance, trusting that he would make things right, and he does. He does. That's our testimony. So just something to think about today. What do you testify to? Do you testify to the goodness of God, or do you testify what a pain in the ass the world is? Do you testify to Jesus Christ who came because he loves you, or do you testify that, you know, nobody ever listens to you and nobody likes you and nobody wants to be around you, or whatever? You know, what do you testify to? Listen to what comes out of your mouth. And when it's all that negative crap, just put it down. Just put it down and say something else instead. Lord, I don't know what to do, but I know you do. Come and help me, please, won't you? And he does. He hears. So go fast, run to win. The Lord's on your side. And I think this gospel message, person to person, can be a very powerful and good thing. But more importantly, it's good for you to say it in your own life. It's good for me to confess it, that my faith grow. It's good for you to confess it, that your faith grow. So in other words, our Christian witness is part of how we are made sanctified in his presence. How do you become sanctified? We'll talk about Jesus. Brag him up. And I'll tell you what, he'll be there to bless you. You have a good day. Bye-bye.